Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Learn with Jason. Today on the show, we are grabbing some of the maintainers of React Router and Remix to just have a little conversation about what the heck is going on with Remix, with React Router, with V7, with all of these really interesting things happening in the React universe. If you're like me, it feels like it's been a lot to keep up with, and I'm excited to have somebody who's on the inside to give us some insight into what's going on. So, Brooks is joining us today. Brooks, how you doing?
Hey, doing well. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm so excited you were able to join. For folks who maybe aren't familiar with you and your work, do you want to give us just a little bit of a background on who you are, what you do, all of that? Did I just kill this stream? Oh my God. No, I didn't. It's fine. Whew.
Okay. Whew.
Oh my God. Yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
No, you're good. That's great. Yeah, my name is Brooks Lybrand. I am a developer in Austin, Texas. I have been on the Remix team about a year and a half now, doing DevRel for them, which means a bunch of different things. But yeah, mostly just trying to focus on community, communication, and then also like all our little special fun side projects like a store that has not been released but will be soon, and our conference that we're hosting in October, and all that good stuff.
Nice. And so, how, like, before you joined the team, how long have you been on the like Remix and React train?
Yeah, that's a good question. Let's see. I think I picked up React about 2017. I think I was still in college technically. And I was doing a lot of data science at the time, but we needed the company I was kind of part-time working for needed more and more sophisticated UIs. And so we started like getting into like D3 and data visualization and web technologies. And then that led me just to web in general, and then led me to realize like, oh, I really like this a lot more than the data science stuff I'm doing. So I just kept on going down that route. Remix, I learned about like when it was still in beta. I was very much, beta / like a paid license. I was just super interested in what they were doing. I was really following the work. And then I finally kind of bought a license right before it went public, which is a great time to buy a license. But I, at that time, started doing a meetup in Austin with like for Remix. That was, I think, 2021. So I was doing that for about like a year and a half, which is definitely a big part of why I was able to get this job. It's just because I'd been building a little bit of that community already. I just really like the way that Remix thought and how it used web fundamentals, using the platform, and everything's built on like the request response model. So I just really like that philosophy, and I was super hyped about it. I already was using React Router, but I was like, it's just a routing library, whatever. But I really liked this kind of new thing that they were doing with Remix, and so so I've been messing with it for about 4 years now.
Very cool. Yeah. So I guess one of the questions that I have is it feels like we're at a particularly tumultuous time in the just sort of like React in general, right? Like it feels like we went from, I mean, I guess React has never really been a calm space because it's always felt like, there's something going on in the compiler space. There's something going on in the, I don't know, like we introduced hooks and that was a whole thing. And then there was like the whether or not Redux is a good idea. And so there's always something for us to worry about. But it feels like recently, at least, I've been feeling tension that doesn't feel the same as the usual React tension around things like React server components. There's a lot of different nuanced things going on with that. I don't want to get into that today, all the things that aren't really the tech. But I am kind of feeling this feels different than like the arguments over hooks or the arguments over whether or not Redux is the right call, or do you have any sense of why? Like, is there something that feels notably different to you? Like, I have opinions, but I'm always curious what somebody who's much closer to it feels.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's a weird thing because it's like I'm working on a team with our founders are like, they've been in the React ecosystem almost since like it became a public thing. React Router is,
Right.
I think, 10 years old now, which is like bonkers. Almost as old as me. No, I'm just kidding. And so yeah, it's just it is super goofy, and it's hard because it's like I definitely have like their opinions that can influence me. I have the like just the outside perspective, which I try to like still maintain. I definitely I think there's like organizational things that happen. I don't really care to get super into that because it's really not like, it's not a blame game at all. It's not a like, oh, Meta
Right.
versus Vercel or whatever. There's stuff that happened, and there's people who know that story way better than I do, and I would just be propagating in gossip at that point. But to me, the biggest thing is it's React wants to be something a bit different. It still is that. I mean, honestly, like we have a parallel story, and we'll get to that probably in a second. But React wants to be like in control of everything, in control of the server in a very different way. It had server-side rendering from the very beginning. Server-side rendering is like, it's a pretty simple story. It's just generate markup and then hydrate all that and rerun it again once you're on the client. We've had that for, since React has been around. That's been one of the core things. That's really what Remix kind of built on top of, was just making that even easier. So that story makes a lot of sense. The RSC story is still like relatively novel, and we've seen versions of it in different things like Astro, and its island architecture is a piece of what RSC is, and then TRPC is like a piece of what RSC is. But RSC it's like this version that's really baked into React, and it's very like interop and has a lot of really cool features, but it is a completely different paradigm. And so anytime, I mean, Next.js has done this, React has done this, and now we've done it. Anytime you call your thing the same name that you had before, but you introduce a really big new paradigm, even if you didn't break anything, it breaks people's brains. And so like, we just need to be a little bit more honest about that, I think, instead of pretending like your brain's not broken.
And I think the other thing that's hard about this one is that this is the first time where it feels like the change that was introduced made things materially harder. Where, when you introduce something like server-side rendering, it's maybe a little more complex to set up, but it takes away a bunch of things that we were already doing that were really hard. And when you introduce hooks, they are maybe, there's many pitfalls, but compared to what we were doing before, it feels like a simplification and sort of like a convergence on something that had been like a known pain point in the community. And the thing that's interesting about RSC is it's the first time that it feels like we were being told that something that we'd kind of already solved wasn't solved well enough, and then told, but we're not actually going to do it for you. You have to go find out userland implementations of this thing. Right. And so it feels very like the closest thing that I can remember to having this feeling is when Flux was introduced, which was the precursor to Redux, where it was like, well, we're not going to build it for you. We just think this is the right way to do it. And then there was this whole kind of controversy until we standardized around Redux. And so the thing that's interesting about this one is that it sort of feels like we're being told the way we do things isn't good enough. We haven't actually built the way to do them better. We've just got this proof of concept, right? And then being told that this is the only way you should build, which then of course has the political problems of like, well, the one framework that had insider action to have that implemented before they announced it is now being kind of by default pushed as like the right way because they're the only one who've implemented this pattern, which is where, I mean, for me at least, this is where a lot of the tension came in, was this sort of like, we don't actually have a solution that works for everybody. We have one solution, but we are going to say this is the right way to solve these problems. And they've since done a bunch of backpedaling, and they've sort of said like, well, no, it's not like the only way, it's just a way. And here we're starting to see things like we're getting closer to an RSC solution in Vite. I know that Remix has it, right? Or you're experimenting with it?
We have experiments. We might get into that today, but yeah, we don't. It is not like in a release currently. Yeah.
Okay, well then let's stop worrying about RSC because that's not really what we're talking about today. But I think it does set the stage then for sort of the tumultuous times that we're in. And Remix has been at a form of Remix, or at least the Remix core team has been at the center of React for as long as I can remember, because it's the same team that built React Router. And we've sort of seen this interesting thing where like React Router has been at the center of the React ecosystem for a long time. It's one of the most widely used package, if not the most widely used package in React. And we've seen it kind of like split and remerge a few times. Like there was React Router, and then there was Reach Router, which was sort of like Michael and Ryan went off and did their own separate things. And then that came back together and it became React Router again. And then there was like Remix was like, what if we did this other thing? And then it's like, well, just kidding. That's also React Router. And so, where do we currently stand on like, what is React Router? What is Remix? Where is the line between the two?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question, and we're planning on making this story a lot more clear, like pretty soon. So I'll do my best to share what I can without spoiling stuff way too much.
Sure,
But
sure.
basically, yeah, like you're absolutely right about the history. That is the reality of it, and it'd be nice if like we knew the end before we got there. Like I think our team is pretty good actually about like forward thinking. We really do try to, like, I know the joke is that React Router is like always breaking things, which is totally fair. I get that people have this experience, and that can be pretty tough. But we really do try to like be really forward thinking. Really, like we take a really, like, middleware is a really recent example of an API that we haven't released for like 4 years, and we finally kind of got to it. It very early on was what some people wanted, but we knew there were certain steps that we had to do before we could get there. So we do try to be forward thinking, but we also don't know
Mhm.
everything we're going to do. For example, Remix, when it started, it didn't use Vite. It wasn't built on top of Vite. That wasn't our
Right,
bundler. We had a custom ES build bundler. The reason we didn't use Vite at the time is because it didn't exist. So how do you know that Vite is
right,
going to become so popular and take over the ecosystem and
right.
be a much better, building block to build on without that reality? So yeah, the back and forth. Some of it's just, yeah, some of it's like just, difference of opinions of how we build this stuff. Like, yeah, Michael and Ryan had just different ways they wanted to build things for a while. Then they came back together, wanted to build the same thing together. They wanted to build Remix, partly because it was like their entire business was decimated by the pandemic. So they had to figure out what to do.
Mhm,
They wanted to start selling software instead of
mhm,
what they were doing before, which was training, React training. And
mhm.
so they took that approach. But basically, a long, I don't know, long story short, it's like it is this kind of interweave back and forth. But Remix has always been built on top of React Router. And so we've always taken, as we built up pieces and realized, oh, this could actually make its way back into the underlying routing library. That's a good thing for all the people using the routing library. So let's keep throwing
Right.
it back into it. Let's keep taking our best ideas and put it back into there. We really did get to this point where we had two things going on. We One had a version of what we wanted Remix to look like in the future, mostly because of RCs. RC really changed, React Server Components really changed what we were thinking about, how we were thinking of building this thing. It really kind of made this paradigm. Yeah, just there was this big paradigm shift. So we were trying to capture like, what do we want to do with that? As any project goes along, there's so many things you want to rebuild from scratch, and it can be
Mhm.
frustrating to have to like go slow for everyone else, but that's really necessary too. So we got to this point where we both had that, and we also had this reality of, it's like Remix and React Router are the same exact thing, except there's a Vite plugin that's just doing some magic for you. It's taking your route modules and like converting it into all the stuff that React Router needs at a
Right.
more fundamental level. So at the time, I think this was like last March, we decided, you know what, we're just going to take what Remix has been and put it back into React Router. Because that really this is our React story. This is what we've been doing with React for a while. This is our React framework. This is our routing in React. And we're going to go that direction. And then with Remix, that will hopefully clear us up to be able to do something really different that we want to do. The only flaw in the problem, in my opinion, the flaw in the plan was that we took like a year to get to part two of that, and so I think that just left this weird space where people were like, "Why are you still calling yourself Remix? If really, what you're working on is React Router." And so that's the
Mm.
piece that like we're gonna talk about a lot more soon, but I'm not
Okay.
at liberty to say, unfortunately. So
Got it. Okay. So
hopefully that
news
adds
on
some
that front
context.
in the future. Watch this space. So in the interim here, what I think is really interesting is that, like you said, a lot of the things that made Remix powerful have made their way back into React Router. And I think that there are a lot of things that when I used Remix, when I kind of first looked into it, they were really interesting. Like there were things introduced in Remix that I think we've seen kind of make their way into other platforms that it's just been kind of they didn't feel like I'd ever seen them before, and they all now feel pretty common sense. So I think the thing that would be interesting is looking at, what does it look like to use React Router today? Because I think React Router v7 versus React Router v4 are very different things. And for a lot of us, we're maybe maintaining older projects. They're using older versions of React Router. So maybe just kind of seeing what it looks like if we start with a brand new project in React Router, and then maybe talking through a little bit of like, where are we seeing the influence of what was built in Remix showing up in React Router v7 as we go through and maybe build something out, which I think makes for a pretty natural breakpoint for us to switch over into pair programming mode. How does that feel?
That sounds great. Yeah.
All right. So let me take a quick second before we do that and just talk for a minute about our sponsors. So we have a wonderful sponsor in G2I who has generously decided to support the live captioning on the show. So let me throw this nice little banner up for them. And you can use G2I if you are hiring, because hiring right now, it's super hard. It's noisy. There are thousands of people looking for a job. It's rough out there right now. And if you are in a position where you need to vet these engineers, you are getting flooded with resumes. You are getting, it's a ton of time. It's making sure that you get people with the right skills, making sure that you're not getting fooled by people who are trying to game the resume system or just feeding you AI spam. All that stuff is really, really hard. So what G2I does is they solve this problem by doing technical vetting before you. They do technical vetting for you with live technical interviews in a way that is sort of customized to what you need for your company. And this means that you don't have to spend the time doing that. They've done this for companies like ShopMonkey, Detect, for Differential. They've worked with the bunch. You go look at their site. They've got a big old logo wall. And they can help with contract full-time or contract to hire. They will, they'll also help you hire like leadership roles if you need it. But honestly, if you're in a position where you are hiring right now, the nice thing about G2I is these are people that you've seen in the community. Like there are G2I folks at conferences. They're hanging out at local meetups. They are the, the power behind React Miami, for example. Like this is a group that is actually engaged in the community and is actually plugged into what's going on in engineering. So these aren't kind of your typical template spam recruiters. These are folks who care a lot. So thank you very much to G2I for being part of this. And let me drop this link so that you can go check them out. And I'll also just say, if you are looking to get hired, there's a way to do that through G2I too. So hit that up, go check that out, and we will hopefully help you get hired or do some hiring. With that being said, let me pull Brooks back up on the screen and let's talk about some React Router. Let me get my screen up here. There's the one, there's the G2I website, and we are going to pull up, first and foremost, Brooks, what's the best place for people to go find you if they want to learn more about who you are, what you do?
Oh man, that's a great question. I'm a terrible web developer. I don't have a personal site. So either just my GitHub or Twitter. It's just gonna be Brooks Lybrand, all one word. That's everywhere to find me on the internet.
All right, so we'll do Brooks Lybrand.
Get it.
And there's links to Twitter there, so we'll drop that as the core spot. All right, so go check out Brooks, and we are talking about React Router, which is this one here. So here are the links to React Router. And so if I want to get started and I want to try out V7, what's our first step? Is there anything you want to look at before we go, or are we just diving into the code?
No, let's look at docs. I don't know if you know this, but open source people work on docs so that people will hopefully read them. So it's really helpful to start there and not just goof around with code and then get mad at us if you don't understand things. We definitely, these docs were not the best, honestly, when we launched V7. We definitely kind of fumbled that a little bit, but they're pretty good now. So the first thing you'll see, on that left-hand side, you've got these different modes. If we started from scratch, I guarantee you we would not be doing it this way. Modes, that's a little bit confusing. But this is a historical, this is a thing that's existed for 10 years. It's got a bit of a history to it, just like React has this kind of history. You can't break
backward compatibility.
Yeah, exactly. Do you have you're using RCs, you're just using it as a client library. It does a lot because routing is really central to any kind of application you want to build on the web. So declarative mode and data mode, we're not gonna work with them, but we can talk about them. So if you want to go to declarative mode / routing, yeah, that second one, that'll show you. This is the V4, I think, and on. This is what I learned React Router as. So using components.
This looks like what I remember too. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. So this is the OG, what if we did JSX for everything way of thinking about routing. So this still works. This is great. It's very client side only. It's kind of the way you think about it. So this is very nice if you have a very simple, just pure SPA kind of thing. Maybe you're just, you're using Vite to initialize a React project and you just want a little bit of really simple routing. This is still very great for that solution. And plenty of people are still using this. And then you have what's called data mode. So if you want to go to the routing section in data mode, it'll kind of give you the best idea. So this is like a very config oriented version of building your routes. And the reason that we have this version at all, and you can actually use JSX in this one and it gets converted, but basically this hoists all of your like data loading and your actions and all these concepts that came from Remix in up above, like at the top level of your routing. So you can still use this purely SPA, but you're using like your routes as your loaders and actions and all those sorts of things. That way you're avoiding like waterfalls. You can do nested routing. You can do just all the good stuff that you want that like Remix has, but you're kind of building it up yourself, if that makes sense. So this is like the good.
This is kind of like the React router, the Remix way of solving the problem that something like 10-stack query was built to solve. It's like it's sort of centralizing data to avoid the problem where you have to like load some data, then get another component, and then down here you've got this other component which also needs to load some data. It's like putting it all up at the top so that it immediately starts loading and just is available where it needs to be available.
Yeah, pretty much. I will say like 10-stack query is a bit more sophisticated because it is like a client-side cache as well. And it does like automatic revalidation. It's really nice if you have like pretty complex stuff and you want those hooks for it. Pretty much like React Router, what it's doing is it's really just saying like, it's really an MVC model for React. It's very just simple. Like you have your model view controller, but we just call them loader, action, and like component essentially.
So we're saying like in this route, you might need data. And so just load your data here and it will be available anywhere inside this route, which would be your view.
Exactly. And the whole paradigm of loaders and actions, the way it worked in Remix, the way it even works in this is everything should like follow kind of how multi-page apps work, to where like on a multi-page app, if you submit a form, that's technically a navigation. It's not just an on-click, e.prevent default. That is a navigation. And then B, it's going to refresh everything. Now we want to be a little bit smarter, a little bit better than that. We still want the SPA experience. So you are doing your client-side navigations, but when you submit an action, it's going to automatically revalidate all your loaders. And so your data will always be fresh. So it starts with this very simple paradigm. And then you can add all your caching layers to that as your application needs. But that's kind of the main paradigm.
Got it. Okay. All right. I'm with you. So this takes what we knew as like a JSX only thing, turns it into a config thing, and we can kind of see how this all plugs together. And then what happens when we go up the stack here to framework mode?
Yeah, so framework mode, exactly. If you want to go to the routing on that one, this is going to look, if you've ever played with Remix, this is going to look incredibly familiar. This basically is when we merged Remix into React Router, when we did that last November. This is the result. Is basically now you can use a Vite plugin, and it automatically gives you everything that Remix had. So your Vite plugin is going to look for things like route modules. It's going to look for your routes.ts file. It's going to find all these conventions, these like framework conventions, and it's going to turn that into like that lower level data router stuff that you would need. But it just makes it a lot more. Yeah.
And so the way that this is working under the hood, and this is why I guess where you were saying this, that Remix is effectively a Vite plugin on top of React Router, is that because we're exporting a loader from this component, then the Vite plugin can take that and change it into this this kind of like data declaration. Where was it? Did I go past it? Here, this sort of data declaration here. So from like a usability standpoint, this makes a little more sense, because, or at least to me, because I'm co-locating the request for data inside the view as opposed to like up in the config declaration where I'm not looking at my view. This, right? Like I can see here's the thing that I'm returning and here's where I use it, as opposed to having to go to my routes file to go see what data I'm loading so that I can then come in here and use it inside the component, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So,
but
functionally, in terms of what's like actually being delivered, they're identical, because the Vite plugin is sort of transpiling this over to that other thing. Is that right?
Yeah, pretty much. It's also doing like, you have other aspects, and we'll talk about this, but like you can do server-side rendering much simpler just by like turning on a Boolean that says, hey, start doing server-side rendering. So the fact that like you're using a loader, tells it this will run on the server. So there's a lot of hookup like that as well. So it's doing that initial render, it's doing the hydration piece, so it's exactly what you said, but like there's so much coordination as well. So if you were going to create a remix or like a framework with React Router data, you would have to build your own Vite or Webpack plugins to like handle all those pieces.
Right.
You would have to handle like what happens when I'm on the server, when I'm getting a request, what handles that request, et cetera, et cetera. So at a high level, exactly what you said, but at like a detail level, it's like so much that is being done for you.
Yeah, and this is like if you're not using Remix, this is why other frameworks or people building frameworks are reaching for something like Vinci, is because all of those different decisions and all those, it's none of it is like mechanically hard in isolation, but when you start thinking about how all these different small decisions add up to be the developer experience of your framework, it's a lot, and getting it right is really hard. So that is something that I remember like seeing these types of patterns. Really, I was like, man, this feels right. Like this feels like the way I wanted to do this kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, and there's some other goodies that we've added with 7, but I definitely want to get into those as we get into the code. Just more things that having a framework and a Vite plugin does for you.
Great.
So if you're ready, I think we can jump into code unless you have any more questions.
I'm ready. Let's see what comes up as we go. So I'm gonna let me just get a new thing going here. We'll zoom in a little bit. I could go back to the docs, but I'm just going to ask you, what's the best way to start here if I've got an empty folder?
Yeah, it's a good question. So you can just like run npx create React Router at latest, but I am going to ask you to go back to the docs.
Okay.
So
sure.
I'm just making you look like a fool. I'm sorry. Go to you can collapse like that getting started section. You should be able to, yeah. And then collapse like upgrading, collapse API. We're gonna try and find the tutorial. It's too many docs. There we go. Address book. Yeah, let's go to that thing. The only reason we're not gonna run through this. I've got a video on this if you're for people on their other time. But scroll down just a bit. I just want to grab
this is the
it encourages.
The video here.
That's the video. Yeah. If anyone wants to check it out, it's like yeah, you're good.
Drop a link there so that anybody who wants to go check it out can.
Perfect. Yeah, appreciate it.
Okay, and you want the template. So the template is this one.
Yeah, exactly. It's just going to have a little bit more set up, like some data and stuff that we can play with versus just
and so
like
this is template. Yeah. We're using the tutorials address book template inside of the React Router repo.
Yep, exactly. Yeah. You got it. So yeah, our React Router like CLI, all it's doing is it's just looking up GitHub basically, or even like if you have a local, template or whatever, it'll find that. But that's really all it's doing.
Okay. Just gonna get all that set up, and then we're going to do all of our installs. This should only take a second, and then we'll pop this thing open. So it's going to be React Router v7. There it is. And then let me open the right profile here.
For sure.
There we go. Maximize that. Okay.
That's so neat.
Yeah, that's super handy, especially if you do a lot of like screen sharing and stuff.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I'm gonna have to steal that one. All right.
Okay.
So first thing, let's run dev. That's always the most fun thing to do. So we'll just run npm run dev and get this thing going. If you want to look at anything though ahead of time, we definitely can. Here's our scripts.
Have you ever seen this? This is something so neat.
No.
That it just like wild. If you hover, it'll run that thing for you.
Nice.
Okay, so we're gonna go localhost 5173.
Yeah, you get it. Perfect. Just the default v1. Yeah. Okay. Not much going on yet, but it runs, so that's a positive first step. So that's good. So let's just start adding some data so that we can actually get this to work. So if you'll go back to the code, and then if you'll go to, there's a file called root.tsx.
There it is.
Cool. So root.tsx, again, if you've played with Remix, this is probably familiar. This is basically like It's the root. It's the if you'll scroll down to, there's I think a layout function, or a component rather, and you'll
here it
see
is.
in
Yeah.
there like HTML head. Like this truly is the root of your entire application. This is the thing that'll run. It'll generate like your index.html for like the main scaffolding if you're using like pre-rendering and stuff. Every single route is going to go through this thing. So this thing is going to, it's going to matter a lot in a lot of places. So that's the very, very high level we have.
Nice.
So yeah, if you'll go,
Brooks, I apologize, but I have been trying to hydrate like hell, and that also means that I now have a fairly urgent restroom need. So I'm going to ask you a question from the chat, and then I'm going to sprint. Gurneesh is asking, I'm going to phrase it differently. What is the different use case for React Router versus TanStack Router? Okay, go. I'll see you in a second.
Go for it. Okay. So yeah, TanStack Router versus React Router. So if you think about it just as the like client-side library, client-side routing library, that's kind of the more similar comparison that you can make between them. And if you compare those two, what TanStack Router has is it has a lot of type safe features, and that's what people really, really love it for. So just at that level, it is very type safe, like completely type safe. So it's really nice at that level. If you're talking about like a framework though, you have to bring it up into like React Router framework mode versus TanStack Start, which is the TanStack universe, their version of what a framework is. And so if you're looking at TanStack Start, there are a lot of similarities. Honestly, there's a lot of similarities in how they work. There's some differences. The main thing to note is just, first of all, it is there's not a V1 of it yet. It's still a beta software. So try it. You absolutely should try it. But there is definitely the biggest difference is the fact that Remix and React Router 7 framework mode has existed for about 4 or 5 years. And so it has been in production. Multiple big companies have built on it. So that's honestly the main meaningful difference. As far as like the actual technology differences, Tanner's going to be a way better person to talk about all those sorts of things. The biggest thing is that it builds on top of like React Query and all these different features. But yeah, if you're actually just talking about TanStack Router versus like React Router, like a data mode or whatever, type safety, they've got a really nice version of that. I don't know a ton honestly about TanStack Router. I don't really use it day to day. Because I don't have complaints with React Router to where I feel like I'm trying to search for another React or router solution. So hopefully that answered it, but there's a bit of nuance in that question. Yeah.
For anybody who's curious too, we're Tanner and I are trying to coordinate on a show where we'll try to do a similar walkthrough, so that if you want to see the difference, hopefully you'll be able to watch 2 like parallel episodes where we kind of walk through both. But okay, so thank you for the brief break there. Why don't we keep rolling? So you said in the layout is the root. We've got our HTML, our body. This is exactly what I would write in my like index.html, which I notice neatly I don't have to have here, because that was always like a little jump in React that I didn't love, is that you sort of had like just this tiny bit of your React code that was an HTML file that was very much like separate and different. So I like that it all feels like it's part of one thing now.
Yeah, you feel like it's very the disgusting metaphor we like to use is that it's guts out. Like you can see everything. So we're not hiding anything from you. Cool. If you'll scroll back to the top, the root does have the layout. That's kind of unique. We're not really going to talk about that here. We have docs on why we have that layout. But this export default, this is very typical of like every single route will have a default component, and this is what's going to get rendered. So inside of that, there's a list, a UL with LIs, and it's just like hard-coded data. So we're going to add some data here to make this working. Cool. So above that, yeah, go ahead.
Just doing a little bit of compression here so we can see.
No, I love it. So above that, let's export a function. We can make it an async function for now. And we're going to call it, we're actually going to call it client loader. And we'll kind of get back to why we're doing a client loader in a second.
Pascal case, or not, what is this? This is
camel case? You got it. Camel case. Yeah. All right, that's perfect. And then in here, let's go ahead and, sorry, I gotta pull up the actual docs myself to remember. All right, React Router So from here, we can return whatever we want, but we do want to actually pull in some data. So there should be a file called, I think it's just called data.
Data.ts, here we go.
Yeah. Okay, so let's see what we have in
So we've
here.
got
Yeah, this
some
is just
fake contacts.
fake contacts. Let's find the
Get
first
all.
export that we have in here. Yeah.
And
Yeah,
we have an
here we go.
export called
Yep,
get
fake
contact. So
contacts.
we want this one.
Yes. Let's import that, and then we're just gonna call that in there. So this is fake database. Here you would be using your maybe an ORM that's connecting to a database or whatever you're using, or even like connecting to GraphQL or REST endpoint or whatever. Cool.
And do we want it like this, or did you want to do anything to it?
That seems fine. Yeah, let's just return it. So it's going to return, it looks like an array of these contact items. So
yeah, contact records.
How do we actually use that? So what this means basically is that when we actually run just any route, but the root especially, it's going to run the client loader. And you might have guessed it's going to run that on the client. We're not actually doing anything server oriented yet. And then we actually want to like use this data somewhere, right? So we're not using, we don't have RSCs. We're not actually like doing that await async in there. We're going to pull it down in here. And yeah, you're already guessing we're going to use something called like use loader data, right? Or something. Data, yeah, exactly. Yeah, so that would work. That's great. Yeah, let's try that. Okay. And it should just come from React Router, which is great. And then let's just try and map over. But yeah, it doesn't have a type. So that's kind of lame actually. So this is lame. We need to give this types. So we could pass a generic in here. We could do all this stuff, but instead, let's actually open up in on line 19. We can actually get some props from like for our component there, like kind of injected into it. Yeah. So it's just going to be called loader data.
Oh, we just get one called loader data.
Yeah, you get it. And then how do we actually get the types on this? So let's go ahead and annotate this. So on the right-hand side of that curly brace, we're gonna let's not type it out. We got something way better than that. We don't even need to type it out. So
that's what I wanted to hear.
All right, just capital R route. We've already got it imported on line 8, which is why it exists already. And then see, and then dot component props, and it should show up. There you go. All right, so hover over loader data. All right.
Okay, and now it says contact record.
Yeah.
Hey, so I can get rid of this.
There you go. Exactly.
Okay.
And so now in our loader data, we should just be able to map over it and use whatever the heck it gives us.
Okay, so we can say loader data dot map, and that's going to be a contact. And we're going to take this.
Yeah, just take one of the examples we had. Yeah.
And we'll say, let's see what's in here. Contact dot.
So I think we just have that ID.
Is it the ID? So we just need we need to kind of build one out.
Let's do what we had. Yeah, contact slash and say, yeah, you got it exactly.
Okay, so there's our contact slash ID, and then we'll do a contact dot. Was it first?
Let's just do first, and then yeah, and then let's just do another one that's last. Yeah, exactly. Cool.
Okay, so that should get us back to where we were.
Should, yeah.
So let's go take a look. There we go.
All right, we got everything. So that's perfect. Okay, cool. So that's all loading, which is really great. I assume, I can't tell. Yeah, maybe click on one of those and let's see what, if anything, happens. Okay, so we get a 404. The reason we got a 404 is because
wait.
Page doesn't exist. Good.
Is this it's the ID is bringing up something different than a number? Do we need a different value?
That's
or
fine.
Is
I think that's
the right
the idea it uses.
Okay.
It's just silly data. No, this is completely expected. Don't worry. This is what we wanted to happen because we haven't actually set up a contact.
Right. We don't even have, where would it be? Right. So we need
exactly.
We need like a slash contacts, and then we need to figure out how to determine by ID.
Exactly. So with a lot of like frameworks, especially like full stack frameworks, you would use like file-based routing to set up your routes. That's very, very typical, right? So yeah, you'd have like a routes directory, and then you do like routes slash contact dot like $sign ID to say like this is a param. we can do that. You can still do that in React Router, but we actually kind of try to take a step back and do something that's more similar to like a routes.rb, if you're familiar with like Ruby on Rails and how they do it. So if you go into that routes.ts file, this is like our config based routing right now. So you still have to use files for your route modules. There's a lot of reasons for that. I gave a whole talk at React Miami about why we do that. So I'm not going to go into the full details of that unless you have very specific questions. We're just going to run with this and set these up. Good.
Where would one find that talk? Is it on YouTube?
Fantastic question. I don't think they've uploaded it yet. I
Okay.
think Michelle said they would upload it by the end of the month. But hey, G2I sponsors, get those talks out. The people are asking.
So here's what you do, everybody. You go follow Brooks on Twitter so that you don't miss it when that talk comes out. If you're interested in learning more about how all of that functions. Okay. So
man, what a professional. So seamless. All right. Okay, so we're going to make our routes, and we could just make like a bunch of objects, and that's like kind of how you can define your routes. And then, so if you make one, then you do like, what is it, like control space or whatever to like see what all the options are.
We can see.
You'll see that it's already kind of telling you.
Here's our file. Right. Yeah. Okay.
Exactly. So we've added, instead of like building out that itself, we've added some little helpers. So go ahead and delete that object and just write the word route, and we should get the import that we want. Maybe not. Just there we go. Yeah, that first one. That's exactly it. Cool. And inside of that, it takes a path. So that's like the URL, like what we want to match to. Contacts. Yeah, exactly.
What is happening? There we go. Contacts. Oh man. Oh Jesus. Oh God. There we go. Okay. Spell it right. Contacts. And then what's the convention in Remix for variables?
It's like, gonna be man. See, now you've got me second guessing myself. I was gonna say,
I know, because there's like three that I've seen. There's $, there's colon, and there's brackets.
I know. I hate conventions. It's like I write this every day and I don't even know what I'm supposed to do.
It's
okay. It is a colon. It is a colon. So the reason they do a $, I'm pretty sure, is because of like file conventions. You need something besides a colon, I think. So yeah, that's perfect. And then the second argument.
Got that.
Yeah.
Second
so this will also be a string
file. And that's going to be, do we need to we'll just make one up and build it in a second?
Yeah, exactly. I would do like pages/contact details or something like that.
Contact details.
And you can get rid of the, get rid of the relative at the beginning. I think it's fine to have that, but I think it's a little bit better. It's all going to be relative to your
just in case. Yeah.
Yeah. Just in case. I think it's okay.
Okay.
But, we want this.
Do we need any?
Okay, cool. So
any third options?
No, the reason you'd have a third option in this case is for two reasons. One, you can give it like an ID, an identifier. So if you're using the same route like module for multiple things, that's the automatic ID that it uses. And so you would need to differentiate that. So that's a really corner case. And the other reason is if you're doing nested routing, we're not doing that yet. So
got it. Okay. Contact details.tsx.
That's perfect.
There we go.
All right, cool. Let's just export a default component and you can just return whatever you want. Let's just make sure this is no longer 404ing. And you can, I guess that works.
I mean, do you want it to be done a certain way?
I'm trying to think I don't think it has to be named. I know this is more of a React thing, like named components show up better in like React dev tools and whatnot. So I know they're very like pro naming all your components.
Let's do it then.
Hey, whatever you want. All right.
No, I like best practices. Like I assume that people who think about this a lot have probably thought about it more than I have.
Other reason.
So let's go give this a shot, and we're gonna go into here. I'm gonna click one of these, and it should just say hello.
Cool.
And it did nothing, and that's because
it didn't go to a. Okay.
I have a hunch. You defined slots in your layout, and we didn't target a slot, so it's just kind of going into nothing.
Exactly. Okay, cool. Yeah, exactly. So our slots, we like to call them outlets. So yes, let's render our outlets. Okay. Yep. So back in root.tsx, because that is our only like parent layout at the moment. Where do we want this? I think it's gonna be in between those two, or is it after? No. Yeah. Go back. We don't have one yet. That's why.
We haven't put
So I
anything in,
think we
right?
wanted
So
them. Yeah.
like here?
Yes. I think you're exactly right.
Okay,
Okay,
so let's
cool.
make an
And
outlet.
that should just magically work. Hello.
Hey!
Yeah, it did. There you go. All right. So there you go. We've already covered like loading data, nested layouts, setting up a route. So before we even like fix the context, I want to show you something else that's pretty cool. So go back to your
Okay.
root.tsx file.
Here. Root.tsx. That's okay, I'm in there.
Okay, so you've got your hrefs, right? First of all, let's change those to a capital L link so that we're doing like client-side navigating, because an anchor will just do like a full document request. Yeah.
What on earth did I just press? No, not
Go away,
that.
GitHub Copilot. We don't need suggestions.
That's not what I meant. That's not what I meant. Oh my God, what is? That's
You're good.
geez.
There it is.
Okay, there we go.
Yeah.
I like just forgot what the shortcut was, and it's 2 with
That's gonna be a
link, right?
2. Yeah, you got it. Okay. Even better though. So yeah, that's one thing. We've had that for years. That's like the whole reason React Router exists, is so you can do client-side routing. So instead of that 2, just go ahead and delete what's inside of that 2. You can keep the 2 itself. We'll put something else in there, but just everything inside of the string that we're creating. Yeah. Okay. And then open up the curly braces again.
Oh, it's gonna be one of these.
It's not that magic. So type in href, and this is going to pull in a util. Just href. Yeah. There you go. Cool. And then open that up. And then if you start typing a string, it'll give you all your options.
Oh, look at that.
Exactly.
That's
so a lot
slick.
of people might wonder why. Yeah. It is pretty cool. It's pretty sweet. And then you'll probably figure out what the next piece of it is. Yeah, I'll let you finish this up.
We can just auto-complete our way to victory here.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, this is another thing that's just
slick.
Like you don't get this without some sort of like, framework, compiler, all the Vite plugin that we have. You just can't do this stuff magically with just the library side of things. But we still need that library layer of it. So this is why we have all our different modes, more or less. And you may be wondering, like, hey, Brooks, why didn't you? Oh, good.
This to me is, this is the stuff that I want to exist. Like I feel like the part that's always hard with any type of building project is just sort of figuring out what's available. And so the fact that I've written precious little TypeScript, like this is the extent of the TypeScript I've written so far.
Yeah.
And with that one line, my 20 characters of TypeScript, I'm able to do things like auto discover what the available routes are and auto discover what the API for like using this function is. The thing that I think is so important is not that like TypeScript gives me the ability to very meticulously type all the things that I'm doing. It's that it's allowing me to write code without having to know how all the code was written. It's discoverable. It's very like you can intuit your way through by looking at these predictions. And I think it's hard to overstate how valuable that has been in the world to like see these little DX improvements come out.
Yeah, it's super cool. And honestly, like, TAN-stack router was mentioned earlier. I'm super grateful for TAN-stack router because it pushed a lot of people to ask for features like this.
Yes.
So yes, this is where competition
it's
really good. It just makes everything better. Yeah.
Competition is a great thing. And whenever somebody gets sad that there's somebody else in the space, I'm always like, wait, but isn't this what we wanted? Like we want lots of options, because that means that all of the good things that come out of all these options are going to show up in all the things we like too.
Exactly.
You can only stay stagnant in a monopoly.
Yeah. And yeah, like it's just like, if you don't like this, then just go be an iOS developer. It's great. Right. They've got it on lock, and they're going to fight all these legal battles so that you don't have competition and you're good. But if you want like freedom and the ability to like create a bunch of different things, then join us on the crazy web that we live on. And hopefully we'll have more than 4 websites again one day, but that's another conversation.
Someday we'll have, I believe in us. We're going to get to 5.
Sweet. Okay, cool. Blue Sky is trying its hardest. So
I love Blue Sky. That's actually where I'm spending most of my time these days.
Ah, nice. Okay, cool.
All right. So we've
Um,
got data coming in. We've got auto-discovered routes through this href helper. We are,
Yeah.
I believe, client-side routing now. So I'm gonna come out. I think I didn't need to do that, but I'm
Heck
gonna
yeah.
just click this button. And
Yeah, I
let
mean,
me
we're not
go
going to see anything
back.
change, but yeah. Yeah,
Well,
you
this
got
is
it.
nice though. So we're coming back and no page refresh. We're able to kind of move back and forth and everything works. So that's good.
Sweet.
What do you want to do next?
That's a good question. So, oh man, how much time do we have? Where are we at?
We are, we've got about 35 minutes of coding left.
Okay, sweet. Okay, so we can, there's like a bunch of different ways we can go because we have a lot of things. Let's get the server-side rendering piece working. That
Okay.
seems important, right? Okay, so right now we are just doing client-side routing. I think go back and if you refresh, is there going to be like a split second where it flashes? Okay, perfect. Okay, so that's because we're client-side routing, right? If you use create React router, this is the default setup. Same with Beat. Client-side routing, not bad, or rather client-side routing only. And by routing, I mean rendering, sorry. It's not necessarily bad, but for a lot of websites, we don't want that flash the first time people go to it. We want, we want everything to be generated on the server and sent as HTML. This is especially important.
We
for
also want
LLMs.
websites, and we want websites to function without JavaScript turned on. Like if I load a page,
ideally,
I want it to work.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. And the reason why, like, this is a Remix was really big on this early on, right? The whole progressive enhancement thing. And so this is a thing that I'll mention that, and people will respond to me and say, like, why in the world, who's turning their JavaScript off? So just a quick, aside here. Very, very few people actually turn off JavaScript to navigate the web. It's not about that. It's about you don't know when JavaScript's going to be ready. Unfortunately, there's this whole. Did we lose him?
No, this is. I'm just giving you the platform. This is you
perfect.
on your soapbox.
I have the platform. This is amazing. Oh, cool. So, oh man, I lost my train of thought. This is awesome. So the problem is we have this thing called the network. We can't control that. We can't control where our users are. We can try and control how close like our data centers are. Use something like Cloudflare, and you've got you're going to have like durable objects everywhere around the world, but you have no idea where they are, and like if they're entering a tunnel and they're going to lose connection or whatever it is. So yeah, you want your website to be resilient. We want things to be resilient in general in technology. Backend applications, we make those incredibly resilient by having like multiple different versions, so that there are these fail safes, so that if one service goes down, a new one can restart. This is why like serverless got really popular. So we need the same thing on the front end. If the majority flow, what you need to do, if you have like an e-commerce website and you want your users to still be able to like buy the new shirt that you just released, even if their JavaScript has not fully loaded yet, that's going to be a better experience. You're probably going to sell more t-shirts by doing that. So anyway, this is why we want progressive enhancement. It's not because people are navigating around by turning off JavaScript. So that is there we go. That's soapbox over. All right, thank you.
I wasn't prepared. I love it.
It's something.
No, it's all good. I think, I mean, this is the thing that I always love is when you look at something at the surface level, a lot of times it feels silly because like, of course people have their JavaScript on, but like I frequently experience moments throughout my day where as I'm leaving my house, my Wi-Fi drops and I don't have very good cell coverage. And so the website that I'm looking at just fails to work. And I have to wait until I'm further away from my house and I have better cell coverage to like do the thing I was trying to do. That's not like me choosing to turn off JavaScript. That's the network choosing to turn it off for me. Right? So sometimes we want to be resilient to bad connection scenarios. We want to be resilient to like weird blips and all these things that can happen. And like the other thing too is it also just makes the experience of using it with JavaScript better. Like you said, there's that half-second flash. Like if we don't get the half-second flash, my experience improves.
Yeah. This is what was so fundamental to me about Remix. And we're not even probably going to get to like forms and stuff. We talked about this a little bit, but the way that Remix like said like, hey, we're going to start with the foundation of like multi-page apps and the way the web was built. For me as like a relatively, I came into web dev when like React was in full swing and we were, on click, e.prevent default everywhere. It actually was really helpful to like go back and understand what is the fundamental layer I'm building on top of how the web actually works. And
Yes.
thinking that paradigm and then enhancing it is actually going to, it's not just going to make things more resilient, but it's also going to make you a better developer. You're going to understand the platform you're building for just so much better. And it's going to allow you to do just a lot more than you could before. You're not going to be in this narrow box of just like everything has to be, you know, React. And I can only think in versions of React. And it's like React's great, but there's a lot more outside of React. And React would be the first to tell you, like, don't do every single little thing in React. That's not necessarily always going to be performant. Yeah.
Yeah. I think like a lot of times people get hung up and say like, well, but you shouldn't, like, it's gatekeeping to say that people have to learn the platform. You never need to learn anything. You don't have to learn, especially now with the way that AI is going. Like you probably never need to think ever again. However, your life will probably improve if you do. Right?
Yeah,
like you always have the choice not to learn, but you also gain advantages by doing so. So it's not that we're saying you must do it or you'll fail. We're saying that you're going to have a better time if you choose to learn. So yeah, not gatekeeping, just some gentle encouragement that you got this giant brain muscle and it's so good at learning things. And if you let it do that, oh man, how good is life? Like it's just fun to know stuff and be able to do stuff. Like can't recommend it enough. Anyways, you want to write some code?
Okay. All right, let's hear. Yeah, sorry, that was a lot of soapboxing. Okay.
Oh my god.
Okay. Cool. All right, thank you. You said it way better than I could have. All right, let's server side render. Let's get some servers
Let's do
involved. All right, go to reactrouter.config.ts. It's gonna be outside.
I'm in.
All right. Let's see if you can guess.
I have a hunch
here. All right.
Wait, is that really it? Does it just do it?
Well, let's see. Save it and let's refresh. All right, we still got a flash, but it is actually technically server-side rendering still.
So if I turn off JavaScript, we'll still get a page.
Maybe try it. Let's see. Let's see what happens. And also, let's open up the network as well, and just see what's coming in. All right, give us a refresh. Okay, what do we got? We got a bunch of stuff was blocked. That makes sense. At the very top, did we get an index.html file though? We got John Jensen. Let's look at John Jensen actually. You see that?
Okay, we got that. Here's our response.
Okay, so we actually did server-side render. We got HTML. We got something back.
We did,
but we didn't actually get like anything back. So the reason is because if you go back to our root.tsx file, we were using a client loader. And so you can use client loaders inside of a, you can still use client loaders with server-side rendering, but they don't run on your server. They just run on your client.
Running on the loader. Yeah, it's always on the client.
So we turn JavaScript off, which means we don't actually get, this can't run. This is JavaScript. So if we change this to a loader, this should all just work correctly. And that partially works because our data source is kind of cheating. There you go. Perfect.
Sure. But this is great because this shows the difference between like if we're not doing a client side fetch and we're doing server side rendering, then when like obviously any complex app is not going to actually work with JavaScript disabled. But the idea that if I'm just trying to check my account balance, I can do that. Like I might not be able to initiate a transfer. I might not be able to do all these other things. But if I'm just trying to figure out like, do I have enough money? Like, can I make a withdrawal from this ATM and I'm on 3G? I just want to see that number before, right? Like there's so many little things that are just much nicer when you, oops, that's not the button I wanted. So let's turn this back on, enable JavaScript. And now that we turn this back on, oh, look, now we don't even get the blip because we're still doing we're doing the server side loader now.
Exactly.
So because
everything
client loader, it solved our blip.
Yep, exactly. So so we have loaders, we have client loaders. You can even interop those. So if you wanted a client loader, it can be in charge of when your server loader is called. It can then cache that in something like React Query or TanStack Query, which is really nice. So you actually have like a bunch of different tools to build up whatever you want, but it's still just this idea of these layers of loader, client loader. If you have one component, you trigger an action, client action if you want one. and that goes through. And then more recently, we've added middleware, which maybe we can try and get some middleware going, because that's one of the more fun new features we have.
Yes, I think there was even a question out here about is there plans to handle middleware so we don't have to have multiple auth checks and nested routes and things. So it looks like the answer is yes.
Not only are there plans, there are features to handle middleware. So cool. Let's so this is, I am gonna have to pull up some docs for this one just to make sure I know exactly how to do this one. It's still unstable. So the way that we release new features, we release first as unstable, meaning this API could change between versions. When we're happy with the API, we'll release it as in a minor. If it's purely just new, we'll release it in a minor. If it is a breaking change, we'll release it in a minor, but with a flag, like a V8 flag at this point. So that's kind of the idea. So here, let's go to our root.tsx file, and we're gonna just this will just be top level middleware. You can put middleware wherever you want in your entire tree. So we're going to export a const, and we're going to call it, man, where's my example? It's going to be unstable underscore and then middleware.
Okay. And I assume that is it async?
Realizing, yeah, it's going to be, well, it's going to be an array because we could have multiple.
Oh, got it. Okay.
Yeah. So give me 1 second. I'm trying to pull up my docs and I can't find them. Here it is. All right, perfect. Okay, I forgot we actually have to do one more thing. So go back to our React router config file. And then here, type future. So this is how we enable all our future flags. Perfect. All right. And we got a bunch, but we just want the middleware one. That's great.
Got it. Yeah, I like this convention.
Okay, cool.
Okay, so we've got that, and then back in here, we're exporting some unstable middleware, and to do that, we're going to add in a function.
Yeah, so we're just gonna we can just inline it. That's probably the easiest way to do it. So yeah, we'll just do a function like that. It's perfect. You could do it as either one. That's great.
Yeah, why not? We'll do it this way.
Perfect. Let's go ahead and we can get some type safety here too. This one, it's not my favorite, but once you have it set up, it works. So on line 22, let's annotate what unstable middleware is going to be. So we'll do colon and then do the route, that capital R route, because this is also type gen. And then there should be an unstable middleware something or another. There we go, that one. And then it's an array. So let's just put the brackets at the end. All right, cool. A little bit of ceremony. That unstable makes it super ugly, but now things will be pretty type safe, so that's good. Okay. All right. So in here, what we're gonna do a very, very simple middleware. That's just going to basically measure performance in our application. Like very simple. Like when were things initialized, and then when did we finish like handling all the requests? Okay. So let's just create a variable called start at the very beginning. We'll do like performance.now is perfect for this. Cool. And then let's do the end. Let's just finish both pieces of it so we know what we're doing.
Same thing, just check
exactly. So that'll take a measurement once, twice, and then let's console log something that just says like, hey, I've got, let's do console log navigated to, we'll just say like this navigated to, and then we're going to give it a variable. We want to tell it where it went. So we can just open that up and we'll get back to that in a second. Okay. And then just like add the time, maybe like a dash, and then we'll just say like what the difference of the duration was in milliseconds. So okay, so n like minus start. Perfect. And then let's add ns at the end just so we know. NS? Milliseconds. Yeah. No, milliseconds. Sorry, as in mother. Yeah. I forget how performance.now works. Yeah. Okay. So then totally to get this, I have a hunch you're going to give me a helper in here. Yeah. You got it. Okay. Yeah. So open that thing up as curly braces. You got it. And then you got a couple of things. We're going to want the request. Perfect. And then we'll just use, it's just a normal request. So it's got all the requesty things on it. URL is probably the best thing to use in this situation. Oh, is it just like the straight up URL? Okay. I think
Okay,
because I think it'll parse it. Yeah. If it's not already
got
a
it.
string. Okay, so now what do we actually want to measure here? We want to actually measure like everything else that happens. So basically, middlewares all happen synchronously,
Hmm.
or they happen like one after another, and then all your loaders run. And so there's actually, just like if you've ever used, Express, you get like a next function, right? That's pretty typical. So
Hmm.
the next function it's actually the second argument to the middleware. So it's not in that curly braces. There's reasons for that. I'm not really going to get into, but it's right there. So what we're going to do is we're just going to call await next, exactly. And we want to actually get the value returned here. So let's save this to something like, res for response or whatever you want it to be called. That's
Okay.
perfect. And we need to make sure that at the very end of all this, we return that response, because this whole chain needs to return. Everything needs to keep returning responses. If you don't do the await next thing, the middleware will automatically do it. So you only have to do this if you're trying to do something in between, like a response happening. Otherwise, you can just like run stuff in a middleware and the response stuff will be handled. So don't even worry about it. But we specifically want to say start timing. Hey, run everything else that's supposed to run. Oh, that's all done. That entire thing is like come back up. All right, now time again, print that out and return this, and we'll be on our merry way.
Okay. And so
That
that
makes
should
sense.
show up in here. Yes. Yeah, there it is.
Yeah, that'll be on our server side. There you go. So we already got one. So let's just poke around and go to a bunch of different pages, and it should all be like half a second. Perfect. This is way less exciting without setting up that data piece, so that's okay. Perfect. All right. So yeah, now we have like really simplistic, timing and whatnot. And the nice thing about these middlewares is because it's just this function, people
Hmm.
can create their own middlewares, and then you can import that as an npm package. So Remix Utils is a really great like community package that already has like, I think like 10 different middlewares. Yeah, let's go to it. It's definitely worth it.
This one
Yeah,
here.
Sergio. Exactly. So if you just like scroll to the complete bottom of this entire document, might take
Holy
like,
crap.
30 minutes because it's a huge document. Perfect. So you're seeing already, yeah, there's like this honeypot GOPA just a little bit, but we'll start seeing all the middleware stuff in just a second. Here you go. So like a honeypot middleware, like there's some like cookie stuff, like a
Oh yeah, here's some
JWK
auth.
middleware. Yeah, so they've already created a bunch of patterns in this library for just middleware. You can just plug and play for authentication, for session management. We didn't even talk about context, but we have a really nice like type safe context feature now that they built on top of. So even if you're just like
Hmm.
trying to understand and get your mind around middleware, this is like, to me, a better resource than our docs currently are. So definitely
Cool.
worth
Very
checking
cool.
that out for a lot of
All right. And
good
just as a
recipes.
reminder, if you are in the Code TV Discord, we have a channel called, I think it's called Links, that will automatically import anything that I'm sharing here. So all the links from the show today are going to be posted in that channel if you want to go check them out. All right. So we've got some middleware. We can see that happening, and you can kind of imagine we could also do something like, if there is a valid session for the given user, then we return next. Otherwise, we would redirect to the login
Yep.
page, right? That, and so
Yep.
little
Exactly.
stuff like that gets nice and easy when you've got a good middleware pattern. And
Yeah.
then these do these execute on the server side? Are they executing in only certain contexts? Like I know there was that whole thing about like the Vercel middleware being, that whole thing in Next being like completely bypassable with a certain thing. Does this work the same way, or like is it? I guess I don't know enough about how any of these are implemented to answer
No, that's
this.
a fantastic question. So first of all, to answer the first part of that question, go ahead and just go ahead and like navigate to whatever route is that like type we've been messing with. No, not in here. I'm so sorry. That was confusing. Within the code base, like command click on route on line 22.
Line 22.
Yeah, that guy. So you've got, this is like auto-generated. This kind of shows you everything you have or you could have in a route module. So you can see here on line 33, we have client middleware. So by default, it follows the same exact convention. You can have, or middleware is all
Oh.
server side, but if you want client side middleware, for instance, like you want to set up a client-side cache, and you just want to do that once in a middleware somewhere, instead of like having to think about setting it up on every single route. Or for some reason you're doing your authentication on the client because you haven't migrated to something server side, and so you're using some
Like if you're like
resource.
literally SPA only, you can
Yep,
use the
exactly,
client
and you need
middleware.
that stuff. Yeah.
Mhm.
So you have both environments. You can do it. The middleware stuff, that is
Cool.
the stuff we did is on the server. As far as like your question about security stuff, so that's a great question, and I'll be the first to say we've had also security issues. We had kind of some similar ones that we had to create a CWB, I think that's what they're called, for relatively recently. The problem with that is actually it's not related to like middleware itself. It's just implementation about handling like headers. So we used, I'll just talk about ourselves because I don't want to bag on like Next.js and whatnot. They had some decisions. We use some headers to handle actually pre-rendering. So if you wanted to like pre-render, pre-generated route, or static site generation is what most people call it. We were using headers just to signal that, and we realized like actually someone pointed out to us rather that's actually a really easy way for someone to like just spoof and just say like, hey, pretend you're pre-rendering now. And then it would just like completely, you could just blow up a page and then it would poison the cache. For everyone else, it would get cached in a CDN if you did it at the exact right moment. You could also theoretically like run some nefarious code with these things. So it's really,
you can make a mess out of it.
Yeah. So it's actually, it's really that level where security concerns come in. Just the fact that middleware exists, you can now create your own security risks. You have full power to do that, but it inherently is not. It's just another function we're calling on the server, just like your loader. It's really just about coordination of when it runs versus when your loader is running.
Okay, great. So that makes sense. What else do we want to dig into, knowing that we have how many minutes left? Like 10-ish, a little more?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm trying to think what's worth going into. We've definitely done.
In chat, if you've got questions that you want to see us dig into, please do drop them now. This is probably your last chance for us to dive into something on stream without sending you just to a doc or something. Things that I would be interested in seeing. Can we just really quickly run through the process of like extracting that parameter and showing maybe just the person's name?
Yeah, let's wrap that up. So let's create a loader in this route. It needs to be outside this. Yeah, you got it.
It's our loader, and our loader is going to use, I assume, probably there's a like get contact.
You get it. Exactly.
Right. And that contact is going to need an ID, and my ID comes from here.
Yes, exactly. So this is where we'll pull it out. Let's type it. So on the right-hand side, not that part, still within, we're just going to type the args. Perfect. So type in capital R OUT, and this will help a little bit with like how the type safety works. So you can see it's already suggesting things. It's going to be that second one. And I'll kind of explain why. So the way this works is that plus types is kind of the signal that, you got to load our args. That plus types is a signal that this thing is type generated. And then the fact that it's like relative is just the way we've set up tsconfig to where you can always like, it always is aware of exactly where you're at to try and make this really simple. If that's over your head, don't worry about it. We have docs that explain all that stuff, but Jason's doing the right thing here. So,
okay, so we're going to get our contact. I'm going to return this contact. And then up here, I'm going to get my props, which will be the route, and that was component
you're already
props.
Professional. This is perfect.
I remember. And so then down here, I should be able to, I guess we could just say loader data dot first and last. And now what we should, I screwed something up. Can't find module app data imported from contact details. So what did I miss? App data.
Oh, you know what? It's just VS Code's default is really dumb. Change app to be just, I think, ... Or just, remove the app part now. That's VS Code. I don't know why it automatically assumes these sorts of things.
So now we can
Perfect.
pop
So that's
around and
working.
we actually see people's names. Good. So look at us go, everybody.
And if you go back, well, there's actually like one little detail that was skipped over.
Oh yeah.
You may have noticed that those params were actually optional on line 13.
Mm-hmm.
So why is that? Why? Let's look at line 7. What is contact?
Oh, we have an optional.
What's the type of it? Yeah. So the reason is because technically we have no idea. You know, we're not going to throw, rather, or at least we weren't with our get contact if this ID doesn't exist. We're just going to say, hey, this doesn't exist. It's null. You tried to get a contact, but none exists.
Right.
So
I
let's
can
go ahead.
break this right now if I because I wasn't cool enough to make this list. We've now broken the app.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like what's happening exactly. So what we want to do, we want to be good web people. We want to do how the web is supposed to do, and we want to return a 404 response. So we're gonna say, yeah, if no contact, and you can just return or throw, either one is fine. Exactly, response, and then the body you can just say.
Oh, that
I think
that's not right.
it's whatever the MDN docs would say. I think it's just like a string is fine for the. I'll find it for us.
Wait, is that right? That's not right. Body
No, do
and
like
then-
not found. Oh, this is perfect. Even better.
Where is
They should have some examples. Yeah, here we go.
throw new error?
That's not what we need there. There you go.
Wait, what am I looking at? New
Hold
response.
on. Yeah, this is like the returned response.
New
Go to
response.
constructor. You see on the left-hand side, try that one. That might give us a better example.
Status 200. Okay. So we need a status.
That works too. That's
a status
yeah.
and a status text. So we're gonna
Yeah.
return a status is gonna be 404 and status text is not found.
It's still lying. Okay.
Don't you lie to me.
I
Object literal may only specify known properties. What?
Okay, I think change it. I'm looking at the docs to fill this out. No. So change the first argument in response to just be a string that says not found. And now I think
Body init, response init. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you can delete.
So theoretically it would be like this. Okay.
Anyway,
so then that should
now
give
let's
us our
see.
actual. And it won't change anything here, but it should show us out here, maybe.
Theoretically, yeah.
That it is in fact a 404 headers.
Yeah.
There's our 404. And then when we go
And
back
if we
to
want to show
this
is actually pretty easy. Yeah.
Where do I go here? Yeah. So these are still a 200. Okay.
Go back
and
to.
If we want to show this.
Yeah. Export a function called error boundary. It'll be a component inside this module. Doesn't matter where. Perfect. And we'll just do something generic at this point. You can get all the status code and everything, but let's just return. We'll just say not found. Just pretend that we're actually doing the checking. Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So now if I try to reload this, nothing happened, and that's because did I typo this?
No, this one's on me. I'm not sure. I'm not sure why this one's not doing. Try maybe it truly is only for errors. I'm trying to remember why the 404 wouldn't.
Yeah, do I need to throw?
This is a great question. Try throwing. Otherwise, I'm just ending us on a horrible note. Throw it instead of return. I mean, you can you can certainly do an error.
There.
Yeah, so that works, but we still want it to have the 404. So I'll have to do my research to remember.
Yeah, we'll I imagine. Yeah, I don't exactly know how all of that works.
Yeah.
But okay. But so that gets us close. And so what we would say is to figure out how to show 404 for a response, which I imagine is right there in the docs.
I'm sure it is. Oh man.
Again, this is That's definitely why. Actually, you know what? That's a good point. Vinny brings a good point. We never blame the guest. It's always my fault. So, so there you
Okay. It's good to know. I mean, you did exactly what I told you to do. So
no, this is great.
but
This is
I
great.
appreciate it.
So just to kind of recap here over what we were able to cover in, you know, including some soapbox time. I think we probably spent maybe 45 minutes actually writing code. We got ourselves set up with some custom routing. We got data loading from the server. In this case, we also originally were loading it client side. We are using that data to populate the page. We're doing client side routing with the link that falls back to server side routing in a very progressively enhanced way. We are using this nice little helper that can identify which, or it lets us know which routes are available, and it auto completes those for us. We also are able to use middleware to do some stuff, like in this case, check how long it took us to load the page. And then we were able to set up in our routes a route defined by this helper function that tells this is how the href knew what was available, is because we defined this here. And we set that up to a page. That page has contact details, which includes another loader that's using the params that are passed into the page. That's the ID that's being passed in. That is able to also run a load to get the appropriate contact, display that on the page. And we've got this error boundary that allows us to do something correct if there is a problem with the data that we're trying to display. That is a lot of ground to cover. Like, just, I mean, you know, if you've been writing React for a long time, think back to how much work this would have been even 5 years ago.
That's so true.
And how much is just kind of done for you in a framework like this. Like, this is a really, really nice quality of life enhancement. I have worked on React apps since before React was the dominant framework, and the number of things that are just problems I don't have to solve anymore because they've been standardized in frameworks is pretty staggering, honestly.
Nice. That's a way better testimonial than I could give. So appreciate it.
So Brooks, what's next for people here? If they want to go further, they want to learn more, they want to, you know, get their hands dirty with some React Router and Remix code, where should they go?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, really, it's been here the whole time. This tutorial is the first place to start if you haven't messed with it at all. If you haven't learned, you should definitely start with this tutorial. If you are, you know, already familiar, or like you've gone and done that, and you want to, you want to like engage with the community better, the best place to engage with us is on our Discord. So the URL for that is just going to be, it's just rmx.com/ I think this is right. Let me check. Actually, hold on.
rmx.as/discord. I've got it up on the screen.
You knew it already. See? Yeah, there you go.
I didn't know it, but I did copy paste it from your docs.
Beautiful. All right, perfect. And then I will plug this, just because this is a thing I work on every month and I'd like people to read it if they have time, is rmx.as/newsletter. So sign up for our newsletter. We've got good stuff coming. We got some announcements in the works. We've got a conference that we're hosting in October, and we'll be selling tickets to pretty shortly here. And this will be the best way to find out about those.
Nice. Awesome. Well, Brooks, thank you so much. Let me do one more throw to your, I guess, to your Twitter, because that's what I have open. And make sure you go give Brooks a follow. There are a lot of good things coming out. I know you mentioned early on, you hinted at some announcements, maybe some new developments that we should be paying attention for. I know that you had talked a little bit about, like, there's some RSC experiments, maybe some upcoming work with Remix and RSC. So if you want to stay up to date on that and maybe even dig into the experiments, you know, go follow Brooks and make sure you're on that insider route. So that being said, this episode, like every episode, has been live captioned. Thank you so much, Rachel, for being here from White Coat Captioning. Thank you, G2I, for making that captioning possible. And again, if you are hiring, go and talk to G2I. They're great. I know a lot of the folks that work there personally, enjoy them very much. And if you're looking to build something on the internet, maybe go give Remix a try. So that being said, we've got more coming up that is going to be super fun. So make sure you head over to the Code TV website. We've got new things coming out all the time. But the next thing that we got is we are going to be revisiting. Let's see, next week, you know what? We might even have something next week. I don't know. I might be traveling. I can't remember. But we've got lots of good stuff coming up, including part 2 of this building a game in TypeScript that we did with Will King. That one's going to be super fun. We're going to learn about SSH for SFTP using async Python. Also going to be super fun. And lots more that I still need to get up on the website. So as always, thank you all for hanging out. I hope you learned something. I hope you had a little bit of fun, and we will see you next time. Thanks so much, Brooks.